The jungle was vast, stretching beyond the horizon, teeming with life, mystery, and danger. Within its depths, predators prowled, rivers whispered secrets, and the wind carried the voices of creatures unseen. It was in this untamed land that an extraordinary tale unfolded, a tale of bravery, loyalty, and an unbreakable bond between two unlikely allies. The lion, named Kale, was the undisputed ruler of the jungle. His mane was thick and golden, his roar thunderous, and his strength unmatched. Every creature feared and respected him, for he was not only powerful but wise. He maintained the delicate balance of the jungle, ensuring harmony among its inhabitants. Yet, despite his dominance, Kale was often alone. Leadership bore a weight that only he could understand. On the other side of the jungle, in the dense thickets where the moonlight barely touched the ground, lived a lone wolf named Roarin. Unlike most wolves, he had no pack. Banished for reasons unknown, he survived on his own, relying on cunning, speed, and instincts. Roarin was swift as the wind, his fur a shade of silver that blended seamlessly with the misty nights. He was an enigma, a ghost that moved in silence, never staying in one place for too long. Their paths had crossed only once before, in a tense encounter by the riverbank. Kale had been drinking from the water's edge when Roarin appeared, cautious yet unafraid. They had locked eyes, one golden, one icy blue, two souls bound by solitude yet divided by nature. Neither had attacked, recognizing a mutual respect that neither could put into words. Then, just as silently as he had arrived, Roarin had disappeared into the shadows, leaving Kale to wonder about the lone wolf's fate. But fate had a way of bringing them together again, under circumstances neither could have foreseen. Deep within the jungle, hidden from prying eyes, was a small human village. The villagers lived in harmony with nature, careful never to take more than they needed. Among them was a young girl named Liana. She was no ordinary child. Her spirit was as wild as the jungle itself, her heart full of curiosity. She had a special connection with animals, an ability to sense their emotions. While the other children played within the safety of the village, Liana would often wander beyond, speaking to the birds, listening to the rustling leaves, and dreaming of adventures beyond the trees. One fateful afternoon, Liana strayed too far. The jungle, once welcoming and alive, turned unfamiliar. The trees loomed higher, their canopies blocking the sun. Shadows stretched, twisting into eerie shapes. Realizing her mistake, she turned to retrace her steps, but the paths all looked the same. Panic set in as the realization struck her. She was lost. She wasn't alone. From the underbrush, a pair of piercing yellow eyes watched her. A jaguar, sleek and deadly, prowled forward, its muscles rippling beneath its spotted coat. This hunger was evident, and Liana was defenseless. Her scream echoed through the jungle, reaching ears that were always listening. Kale was the first to hear it. His ears pricked, his nostrils flared, and without hesitation, he charged toward the sound. At the same time, Roarin, who had been hunting nearby, froze. Something primal stirred within him. Though he had no ties to humans, the urgency in the cry pushed him forward. Liana backed against a tree, trembling as the jaguar crept closer. His tail flicked, a prelude to attack. Just as it leaped, a golden blur crashed into it, sending it sprawling. Kale stood protectively before the girl, his powerful frame shielding her. The jaguar hissed, baring its fangs, but Kale's roar shook the very ground, a warning not to be ignored. The jaguar hesitated, recognizing the king's dominance, but hunger made it reckless. It lunged again, claws slashing. Kale met it head-on, But before he could strike the final blow, another force joined the fray. A silver shadow darted from the trees, roaring, teeth flashing, muscles coiled with precision. He clamped onto the jaguar's hind leg, pulling it down, giving Kale the opening to land a crushing strike. The jaguar yowled, struggling against two of the jungle's fiercest predators. Wounded and overpowered, it made a desperate escape, disappearing into the dense foliage. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, Kale and Roran turned to the girl, who stared at them with wide, tear-filled eyes. Slowly, cautiously, Kale stepped forward, lowering his head. Liana, sensing his intent, reached out, placing a small hand against his mane. A purr rumbled deep within him. Roran stood a few feet away, watching warily. Unlike Kale, he did not trust humans. But Liana's gaze met his, and something softened in those icy blue depths. Hesitantly, he approached, allowing her fingers to brush against his fur. It was a connection neither of them could explain, but it was real. The problem, however, remained. Liana was still lost. The jungle was a labyrinth, and night was falling fast. Kale and Roran exchanged a glance, an unspoken agreement passing between them. They would ensure she made it home. Kale led the way, his powerful form pushing through the dense vegetation. Roran took the rear, his keen senses alert for any dangers. Together, they guided Liana through the treacherous paths, keeping her safe from unseen threats. The journey was not easy. They had to cross rivers, evade lurking predators, and navigate the ever-shifting jungle. But with Kale's strength and Roran's agility, they forged ahead. Hours later, the distant glow of the village lights came into view. Relief flooded Liana's face. She turned to her unlikely protectors, gratitude shining in her eyes. Though they could not speak her language, they understood. With a final glance, she ran toward the safety of her home. Kale and Roran watched from the shadows as the villagers embraced Liana, their cries of joy filling the night. But before they could disappear into the jungle, Liana turned, searching for them. Her voice, clear and unwavering, called out into the night. "Thank you." The lion and the wolf stood side by side, illuminated by the moonlight. Then, as silently as they had come together, they vanished into the wild, forever remembered as the heroes who saved the girl's life.